Right, hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be ranking and discussing football teams' greatest achievements or miracles. With Bayer Leverkusen currently on the cusp of an unbeaten treble that's never been seen before, it got me thinking, what is the greatest team achievement in football? You've got absolutely loads, and today we've compiled the best list of them, and we're going to rank them, add a little bit of context, and just go through them a bit, and we can decide together. So, let's meet the teams. God, I feel like a guy off the chase. So, we've got 10 today. We've got Bayer Leverkusen currently. We've got Leicester's 2015-2016 Premier League title win, Manchester United's treble in 1999, Manchester City's treble last season, Arsenal's invincible season winning the Premier League in the process, Chelsea's Premier League win when he conceded 15 league goals across the entire season. We've got Deportivo winning the Liga in 2000. We've got Kaiserslautern winning the Bundesliga in 1998, Greece winning Euro 2004, and Real Madrid winning 5 back-to-back Champions Leagues when we were all merely a scratch in our dad's bollocks, if he was even alive. So now what we're going to do, lads, is go through all the teams, look at their achievements, add a little bit of context and history to what they've done so we can truly grasp what it means, and then we're going to put them in a tier list system and rank them from top to bottom. I'm going to try and do it correctly, but I tell you now, it's probably not going to be, so let's get into it. Hello, look, it's me. I was on your full screen before, but now I'm just in the bottom corner. We are going to start this ranking off with Bayer Leverkusen. Now, obviously, Leverkusen are massive in the news at the minute. They're on the edge of an unprecedented unbeaten treble, albeit it is Europa League and it's not the Champions League. But when you consider, you know, how lauded this Arsenal team gets in England for winning an invincible Premier League, they're probably going to do that in the Bundesliga, having already won the league with a few games and a few weeks to spare. They've not lost in the Cup. They've not lost in the Europa League either. They've literally not lost a single game all season. And I know this gets said till it's blue in the face. You'll have Fabrizio Romano and all the Twitter people updating you when they've won a game or not lost a game. And it does just get a bit tiresome. Xabialonso, sexy Spanish manager. It's going to be everywhere. The hipsters' favourite team, basically. But, I mean, just look at this, man. It's absolutely insane. They're 16 points clear with 5 games to spare. And the other thing that goes into this is this Bayern team has won the league, I think, for 11, 12 years on the spin. I think the last time they didn't win a Bundesliga was when Jurgen Klopp won it with Borussia Dortmund, and that seems like absolutely ages ago. So to topple that kind of monopoly that they've got there as well is a massively impressive part that also plays into this for me too as well. But like I said, the one thing for me is they've not done it yet, so they could still lose. So you're kind of ranking them based off, are they going to do it, are they aren't? I'm basically going to rank them off the fact that they're going to do it and they're going to win everything and win this treble. But obviously it is the Europa League they're winning, it's not the Champions League. If it was the Champions League, I'd be like, yeah, fair fucks, fair enough. The most unprecedented, best football club achievement from a team ever. But it's not, and I just can't get past that. But it's still so insane. I don't know, I feel like this is going to upset a lot of people, but because of the fact it's not the Champions League, I'm going to put Bayer Leverkusen in very amazed. We've got 5 tiers here. We've got not arse mate, slightly amazed, amazed, very amazed, and the Vegas tier, which, as we all know, is a GOAT tier. So Bayer Leverkusen, we've got him very amazed. I mean, even when you look at the team, it's not the best team ever. They've got a lot of good players there, but it's not like an insane team where you'd be like, yeah, they should be winning this, they should be winning that. Obviously, they won the league. The favourites for the Cup, who are playing Kaiserslautern, who are actually in this video mentioned earlier, and with the teams that left in the Europa League, like your Romas and stuff, they are favourites for that as well, so you would expect them to win it. But just because it's not a Champions League, I'm going to put them in very amazed. Next, we're going to go with my team, Manchester United, and I'm going to try my best not to be biased with this. This is our 1999 treble winning team. Now, the important thing to note is this is the first time an English club had done the treble, I think, with the Champions League being a thing, certainly anyway. And there's a lot of stuff that plays into this too. You've got the strength of European football at the time. Italy had a bit of a chokehold on the game with Juventus, your Milans, your Inters and stuff, even like your Sampdorias a few years before that. And when you look at United's Champions League run and who they had, I think we had Bayern Munich and Barcelona in the group. Then in the knockouts we had Inter Milan, which granted weren't the best at that point. They still had R9 at that time though. Then we beat Juventus over 2 legs, obviously with that Roy Keane cameo goal, kind of that great captain's performance, and then Cole and York linking up to send us through to the final at the Camp Nou. And then obviously we played Bayern Munich, who were absolutely amazing at the time, and I think topped our group to get through to the knockout stages. Then you look at the strength of the Premier League as well. Obviously it wasn't at its best. At that time it was United and Arsenal, basically. They were the 2 teams that were battling for everything. Liverpool were very much out of the picture and kind of in the doldrums like United are now. Chelsea, you know, they weren't, Roman hadn't bought them yet, but they were still quite good, but they weren't there. And then obviously City weren't there either. So it was kind of just United and Arsenal batting it out for of the league for like 4 or 5 years, but that Arsenal team was still very good. You know, it's not that many years away from the team that went and did the invincible. You had Wenger there, you know, you had the likes of Vieiras, your Pirez's, your Bergkamps, your Henrys. It was an absolutely insanely stacked team. So to get to the Champions League final and progress latter in the Champions League, which Arsenal didn't, by the way, and then still be able to win the Champions League and the Premier League and an FA Cup, and I think the final was against Newcastle. That could be wrong. I should know that as a United fan without doing any research anyway. We had very tough runs. And then obviously, who we won it with as well. We can't win everything with kids. We fucking did, didn't we, Alan? You know, we had the likes of Gary Neville, Phil Neville, Nicky Butt, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, David Beckham, all of these that came through the youth system. We didn't really throw money at stuff as much as we did in the early noughties with the likes of Ferdinand. It was very much a homegrown team of players that had come through the academy, come through Carrington, knew what the club meant, and they were the players that got us over the line ultimately. And, you know, the person who scored the winning goal being an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who was bought for a couple of million, and a bench player, Sheringham getting the other goal that again was quite aging at that point. So I think you have to take the squad into account as well and recognise that it's the first time it's ever been done in English football history in the Premier League and the era of the Champions League and stuff. Obviously City's is massively impressive, and we'll get onto that later on in the video. But I think United, just with everything playing into it, I'm trying not to be biased, but I'm going to put that on the same level as Bayer Leverkusen's in very amazed. I just think when you add all the caveats and the cadence to it, and think about the actual situation that was at hand, and you take yourself back to those games and the level of competition in not only Europe but in the Premier League too, with that great legendary Arsenal side, it really is massively impressive. I mean, that's hardly a massive statement, is it? Man United winning the treble in 99 is really impressive, but we're going to have to fill some of these lower tiers up, so maybe I shouldn't have put it this high. And who knows, might even move them about a bit towards the end of the video, but I think that's fair for now. Next on the list, we've got a bit of a Spanish twist, a spicy little twist. We've got Deportivo La Coruña winning the La Liga title in 1999 to 2000. Now, I don't know this story ins and out. I've done a bit of research. We're going to talk about that in the video. But if you're a bit younger, you've probably never heard of this, and it's quite sad because apart from, you know, the monopoly of Barcelona, Real Madrid, the odd Valencia win, Atleti win back in the day, these are one of the only teams outside of that kind of sector of Spanish clubs to ever have won the La Liga title. So that's impressive in itself. Obviously, we're going to add a little bit of context to the situation. You look at the 98-99 table, Deportivo finished 6th, 16 points off the pace, behind a Barcelona team, by the way, which at the time contained the likes of Pep Guardiola, De Boer, Figo, Kluivert, Littmann, Rivaldo, Luis Enrique, the other De Boer as well. They had the De Boer brothers. They had a young Xavi coming through. It wasn't, Carlos Puyol. It wasn't the greatest Barcelona team ever, but it was still a very good one. Then you go on to how they won it. Obviously, it's not the most amazing league season, and that's going to play into this a little bit. Won 21, drew 6, lost 11. And I'm sure there's lots of added context to add to this scenario, where if I sat there and watched a documentary on it for 3 hours, I might know a little bit more. This is just really scratching the surface of what it was at the time and what it meant. But winning the league by 5 points, you know, when they were so far behind the season before, finishing 6th, getting ahead of the likes of Barcelona, that Valencia team was decent around then as well. Obviously, Real Madrid were nowhere near as strong as they were a couple of years later with the likes of Zidane and winning the Champions League, but they were still a very good team, and they managed to win that. So I don't know, it's a weird one for me because I don't know the full context of the situation, but a team kind of breaking into that, breaking a monopoly, and, you know, doing quite well in the Champions League, I think getting to the semi-finals, or maybe even a final possibly, and a year or two later, and then just going out of nowhere, doing all of this, and then kind of going back down and becoming a mid-table club again is quite impressive, really. It's not often you see that, so it is a massive achievement in itself, but I just think when you add in Barcelona weren't the best, Madrid weren't, Valencia were okay with how they won the league by 5 points, losing a lot of games, and it seems like you can either look at that season as a really poor one in the fact that a lot of teams lost a lot of games and there wasn't a high tally, but I like to see it as the league probably had a lot of quality and teams were similarly matched. Like you look at the United, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, City title races back in the day. We'll probably remove City from that and go back to the noughties really, when it was United and Chelsea mainly. The league titles and league tables were always very close, and there was ever a massive gap between first and fourth, or fourth and seventh and stuff like that, because I think a lot across the board, a lot of teams were a very similar level, and I do enjoy that. I don't think that indicates a lack of quality. I think it just indicates, if anything, teams are evenly balanced, and it's probably even harder to win something. But with all that being said, we're going to put Deportivo in slightly amazed, just because I think when you look at the other stuff that we've got coming up in this achievements list, it'd be I think it'd be a bit ridiculous to put them higher than that, basically. As I said again, might change it towards the end once we've got the full tier list and have another think over it and finish it off. But right now, that's where they're going. Right, next up, we've got Leicester City's amazing Premier League title win in 2015 and 2016 season. Obviously, the scenario with this is they came up 2 seasons before that. They stayed up, I think, on the final day the season before they won the Premier League title, got rid of Nigel Pearson, got Claudio Ranieri in, and then went and won the Premier League even with a few games to spare. It is absolutely ridiculous, and you don't see that in modern football. Even, you know, Deportivo wasn't that long ago, but it was more likely you'd see a story like that, I feel, maybe in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s with some of this stuff, because football wasn't as monopolised. You didn't have this set big six that'd win everything every single time. There was a lot more competition, a lot more homegrown talent about, and football was just a bit more honest. So for Leicester to do that in the age where Man City had Pep Guardiola, was spending a lot of money, yes, I guess you can kind of say they did it at the right time, that the Klopp's Liverpool was just starting off. Guardiola's City, I think, had just come 4th the season before, maybe even 4th in that season, just pipping Man United on goal difference or by a point, if I remember rightly, which only meant that Louis van Gaal got the sack, which doesn't really matter in this scenario. It's just, you know, I don't often remember stuff that was longer than a week ago, so I'm just going to flex that. But you do think about that, and, you know, the teams that were battling for the titles then was that Arsenal team, which should have really won it, but really wasn't that great and was quite poor. That Spurs team that, as we know, no matter how much quality they had, were a team of bottlers, and they were quite early on in their revolution under Maurizio Pochettino as well, so that does play into it a little bit. But when you look at the squad they had, you know, Kasper Schmeichel in goal, a Man City reject who they signed from Notts County, an aging Robert Hoof, an aging Wes Morgan, Christian Fuchs, who is quite old, you know, a fucking 30-odd, 35-year-old fucking pensioner Cambiasso, Mark Albrighton, Jamie Vardy, for as brilliant as he was, had not long been signed from, I think, non-league side Fleetwood or something like that. Riyad Mahrez got from, I think, Le Havre in France for a few $100,000. Similar with N'Golo Kante as well. So Danny Drinkwater, thinking of all these players, Andy King, this is a throwback for me. This is, you know, my core memories in football was around this time growing up as a teenager. So I think when you look at that squad that they've had, to do that, especially after nearly going down the season before, is absolutely ridiculous. A lot of those players did step up, and a lot of the time you will see a team for one random season or two, a bit like Deportivo, really step up, and the players kind of play above their level and out of their skin and kind of rise to the level that they're at the time, which is what Leicester did. You know, it was like they started off really well, then they were like, you know, a couple of points behind it when Arsenal beat them, and it was like, right, okay, they're going to fall off. But they just kept on thriving and kept on improving and kept on adjusting to their environment and just taking everything as it comes. And for a squad that of players that had never really won a title before, other than maybe Robert Hoof at Chelsea or something like that, it was really, really impressive to do that in, again, the modern Premier League era, and then drop off a cliff again, sat Ranieri and nearly get relegated a season later. It just all adds to the chaos and the story of it. Jamie Vardy breaking the Premier League record in consecutive games scored, breaking Ruud van Nistelrooy's 20-odd-year-old record, nearly getting 11, with topping that off against Man United as well. I'm going to be honest, I think this has to go... I'm going to put it in amazed, just purely because, as I said, the quality of the league at the time was quite low. I'm not trying to shit on Leicester's bonfire, or piss on it, rather. Don't think shit had put it out by any means, but I just think this is what this video is for, adding a little bit of context to things and kind of thinking about it a bit deeper, because once you put them all in perspective and put them all on the same screen together, you do kind of start to balance it out. And so for that reason, I'm going to put Leicester in amazed. Next up, we're going to the home of currywurst. Probably my favourite country in the world is Germany. That might be a bit of a controversial thing to say as an Englishman, but I feel like we're past that now, aren't we? Yeah, it's fine. So Kaiserslautern won the Bundesliga in 1997 to 1998, and they're the first and the only till this day newly promoted side to win a Bundesliga title. That might even go for all of Europe's top 5 leagues. I'm not quite sure. I probably should have fact-checked that before I got into this, but that's ridiculous. To get promoted the season before and then win it the season after. They haven't even had the Leicester bedding in season where they've got a bit of the Premier League money, signed some players, got used to it a little bit, adapted to the situation. They've literally come up to the Bundesliga and then shat on the Bayern Munich team that got to the Champions League final and probably should have won it a year later against Man United and was one of the best sides in world football. Again, only won it by 2 points, but we're not going to elaborate on that. I've spoke about my thoughts on that earlier on in the video with the quality of the league and stuff like that. But I think this situation and this achievement is just as clear cut as it comes. They were a newly promoted team that won the Zweite Bundesliga, I think, and came up to the Bundesliga, then toppling again that Bayern Munich team that were monopolising the league to a degree back then. Obviously, Leverkusen were very strong, getting to the Champions League final and stuff like that back in the day, but never won the Bundesliga even. So to topple that, whilst being a newly promoted team with a lot of unknown players that hadn't played in the division before, is absolutely ridiculous. So we're going to rank this Kaiserslautern one just a bit more on the face of it. And for this one, I'm going to go Weghorst here. I'm going Weghorst here for that, because that is ridiculous. I don't know. You know what? It's my own video and I don't even know what I'm doing here, lads, to be honest. So let me know what you think of this stuff in the comments. This is very professional, isn't it? Can you put it on the same level as a treble? I suppose... I don't know. I've not really sat here before this video and thought this will be the best achievement. This is what I'm going to put at this. But you know what? For now, we're going to leave Kaiserslautern in the Weghorst here and see how we get on. Then next up, we have got Chelsea winning the Premier League, having only conceded 15 goals in, I think it was a 2004-2005 season. Obviously, it's Mourinho's first season at the club. The Premier League have been dominated by Manchester United and Arsenal for the best part of 6 or 7 years, if not longer, really. As I said, with that Invincibles team, stuff like that, only the year before. The United team that had won a Champions League and went on to win a Champions League not long after it. For him to come to the Premier League, albeit having that money from Roman and Abramovich to spend with the likes of your Lampards and your Drogbas and stuff like that and your John Terrys, to do that and come to a new league when these teams are still at a very good level and then just completely dominate it and piss it and concede 15 goals is absolutely ridiculous. And I think this is an underrated achievement, and a lot of people that know a bit about old, kind of, if you could say it's historic, it was not even 20 years ago yet, man. People that know a little bit about, you know, older Premier League football and they're maybe my age or in the 30s or a little bit older might know like how big this achievement is and the relevance of it and actually remember it. But I feel like it's something that gets overlooked a lot when you compare it to United's treble winning teams, City's Centurions, City's trebles, Arsenal's Invincibles team, when in reality this has never come close to being beaten even once. Like, it's absolutely nuts to come to a new league off the back of doing what he did at Porto and in his first season in the Premier League just shit all over it. In my opinion, it should be Jose Mourinho's face that we've got here more than the Chelsea badge, because for him to do that is absolutely insane. He got them all singing off the same hymn sheet, and is this kind of opinion with Mourinho teams, maybe it's more valid now, you know, with the likes of Roma and when he's been at United and Spurs and stuff, that he kind of plays boring, counter-attacking, shit football, you know, shut up shop, try and win every game 1-0. This Chelsea team weren't doing that. They scored a lot of fucking goals. His Inter teams did as well. I think his Real Madrid team still has the highest goal tally in the La Liga season ever. I think they got over 100 or something daft. So they didn't play defensive football. They played very good football. They dominated games. They won football matches with absolute ease and did that, won the Premier League and conceded 15 goals in the process. That's really up there for me. I think with the likes of these two, you can't really put it there because it's only one trophy. So we're going to go Amaze, but still such a massively underappreciated and underrated achievement in Premier League football and football history. Right, next up, we've got Greece stunning the world and winning Euro 2004. Now, this is one that I don't remember that much. I was only 6 years old, but I still remember that, you know, how big this achievement was at the time, especially with the strength of some of the teams in Europe at that time, like the England team that never really won anything but was pretty good, Spain, France that not long off the back of winning the World Cup and the Euros back to back with the likes of Zidane and Henry and Trezeguet and players like that. So for them to do this at that time is absolutely ridiculous. Greece have never been regarded as a great footballing nation. If you say name a Greece footballer to me, I just think of Samaras that played for Celtic in the Champions League when I was a kid. So let's look through the roadmap of how they did it. The group was pretty tough, to be honest. They had Portugal in there and they had Spain in there as well. You know, Portugal that time had the likes of Figo. They had a youngish Ronaldo coming through as well, Carvalho in defence, probably Cudicini in goal. They had a decent team. So to beat them in the groups was impressive. Drew 1-1 with Spain, lost 2-1 to that Russia side, and I've no idea who these two lads are here. And then when you get to the knockout stages, beat France 1-0. Obviously, that wasn't the great France team of 98 and 2000, but they were still a very competent team nonetheless. Czech Republic, who I've got to be honest, I'm not that familiar with at the time. And fun fact, that I never knew this rule existed. Greece won this game in extra time with a silver goal. Now, a silver goal is apparently a goal scored in a full half of extra time that is played if a match is drawn. This goal counts as a win if it is the only goal that is scored in the full half or the full period of extra time. So you can only presume that it's kind of golden goal. But if it went to 0-0 at the end of that extra time and then the next one it'd go to penalties, I've literally never heard of that before. I've heard of golden goal. Silver goal's completely new to me. So they beat that Czech Republic side. Obviously, by the way, this is at the time when there's less teams in the Euro, so they did play one match less, didn't play a last 16 game, but that could be said the same for United when they won the Champions League in 1999. And then again beat that good Portugal team in the final. That Portugal team that, if you're English watching this video and is similar age to me, or even a bit younger or older, will remember were that absolute fucking kryptonite for years with the likes of Ronaldo in there. So fucking impressive. I mean, it is really, really impressive to come out of nowhere, win this. And again, the impressive thing is, for me, you have to win so many games. Obviously, it got out of the group and stuff, but tournament football is played on a knife edge, and to win in those big moments and win every single knockout match 1-0 from the quarterfinals all the way to the finals, sometimes need an extra time, is ridiculous. Like, obviously, league seasons might be a little bit tougher, but with the amount of quality that these other teams possess that they were facing, when games in knockout football can be decided like that, like you can be the best team over 90 minutes and lose. To do this is absolutely ridiculous. So this is the only international team in here as well, by the way. And it's worth mentioning, actually, that, there's some people that I've not put in there. You've got Hertha BSC's B team, Hertha Berlin's B team, that got to the final of the DFB Pokal. They didn't win anything. We're only going for winners in here. No one remembers who came second, and neither does Dill's Footy Ramble when he's doing a shitty ranking video on YouTube. So Greece, I've bigged it up, but I'm going to put it in slightly amazed, because even though knockout football is on a knife edge, I do think it's easier to win than the likes of a league season or a Liga Cup and a Champions League or European trophy altogether. So we're going to leave it in slightly amazed for now. Now, next, we've got Manchester City and their treble win last season. Now, I don't really care about this. As a Man United fan, I don't care, because the way they've done it, I mean, if I was a City fan, I wouldn't give a shit. Like, fair play to you, more power to you, lads. But the way they've done it, I just don't really appreciate. Obviously, no one's won a treble in English football, a proper one anyway, since 1999 when United did it. So 24-year gap. Winning the Premier League with relative ease in the end. Champions League, they did struggle a bit, needed some late goals. FA Cup, obviously narrowly beating this dog shit United team 2-1 through 2 David De Gea errors and one great Ilkay Gundogan strike. That was a weird final on a weird day, that. So it is ridiculous, but I've got to be honest with the money that they've spent, and this isn't, again, I'm not trying to poo-poo City's achievement. United have spent so much money and not won anything. Chelsea have done that recently and not won anything, so it's still not the easiest thing to do, and this was kind of the crescendo of this Pep era that he's been building for nearly a decade at Man City now. So it is still a really ridiculous achievement, but I think when you think about everything in it and the way they kind of monopolised football and the way they dominated it, it is impressive, but for me, I'm going to go in amazed. I think it's a tier lower than United's because of the teams United faced as well. And when you add in how United did it with a youth team and stuff like that, I do think that's slightly more impressive. And that leaves us with 2 teams left to rank. It loses with Real Madrid's, I think, 1950, 1960 team that won 5 Champions League or European Cups back-to-back. And Arsenal's invincible team in 2003-4 in the Premier League, I think. So we're going to start with Real Madrid. And I'm just going to say, lads, this is going to be really hard for me to rank. This was played in the 1955 to 1960, the inaugural years of the European Cup, the first team to ever win it, and then won it 5 years on the spin. And obviously Real Madrid at that time were absolutely insane. Try to think of some of the players. This is probably like the Di Stefano days, I'd assume. So it's very hard for me to rank this, because no matter how much research I do, it's not like it was 15 years ago and I can watch the games back or get more information about it, really. I mean, looking at some of the teams he played, obviously this doesn't play into it at all, because football was dominated by different teams back then. But seeing the likes of Rams in 2 European Cup finals in the space of 4 years, Frankfurt in the final as well, Fiorentina even, like, that's just ridiculous. 124,000 people watched it in the Bernabeu, the home stadium, by the way. Absolutely insane. You won't get crowds like that anymore. So this is a really tough one for me to rank, and I'm going to be honest, this is just going to be a bit of a shot in the dark and hoping that people don't get upset. So we are going to put it in amazed, because I don't really know that much about it. Then last but by no means least, I'll say, we've got Arsenal. I'm putting Arsenal's invincible win in 2004 in the not arse mate section. I don't care about it. They didn't win anything else. They prioritised the league. They drew loads of games. They played for draws. They didn't play to win football matches. They played to get this achievement over the line, which, fair enough, okay. But when you think about it, they lost more games across all competitions than United's 1999 team did, than Chelsea's 2004-5 team did. They conceded way more goals than that Chelsea team as well. And I just think it's purely because it's the only team to do it. And don't get me wrong, people are waxing lyrical about it, Bayer Leverkusen doing it now, but they've done it in a much more impressive way. They've played better football. The chant 1-0 to the Arsenal came about because of this. Boring Arsenal came about because of this. And this isn't a biased take either, because I put Man City who I hate, Chelsea were quite actively dislike in higher sections as well. I just think with Arsenal's achievement, they didn't win anything, like I've said. They didn't go far in any other competitions, really. And I just can't put it that high. I can't. I'm putting it in number 10. I'm leaving it in number 10, and I think that's locked in. So let's go through the final rankings of this and what we've got. So my ranking of the 10 biggest achievements in football history team-wise is Arsenal in 10th, with the Not Arse Mate section for their 2004 Invincible win. Then we're going to swap these round. We've not really done these in order. We're going to put Greece at 9 with their historic Euro 2004 win. Deportivo La Coruña with their 2000 La Liga win. And then what order are we going to put these in, really, realistically? I'm going to put City's... This is tough, because I do want to kind of do these in order and not just leave it as it is. Madrid's I'm going to put the bottom, because I know very little about it. Then I think we're going to go for Chelsea, then Leicester and Man City, because even though I've said City bought the Champions League, it's still hard to do, and it's still a fucking treble. Then at third, we've got Bayer Leverkusen, potentially doing an unprecedented treble when they don't lose a single game. But for me, because it's not the Champions League, I cannot put them that high. Then it's second, we've got Manchester United winning the 1999 treble. And number one in the Verge tier, this might be controversial for someone that's got very limited knowledge on the subject. We have gone with Kaiserslautern winning the 1998 Bundesliga after being promoted the season before and toppling the Bayern monopoly when they were one of the best sides in Europe at the time. So that is my final ranking. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I've tried my very best to gain a bit of information and context and knowledge on all of these situations. Obviously the United, the Premier League ones basically, and you know, even the Deportivo, Greece and Bayer Leverkusen ones, I know a little bit more about. Some of them I don't. I've tried my best, but that is my ranking. I think that was more than fair. And obviously there is going to be teams' achievements that I've left out of this video, but I didn't want to sit here and rank 30 different things, because that would be a lot of research for me, a lot of work for me, a lot of talking for me, and probably be even more boring for you to watch. So if you think there's any teams I've forgotten about that have achieved great things in football, whether that be club or internationals, obviously Spain won 3 major international tournaments back to back that I haven't even got a mention in this, pop them in the comments down below, and if I can compile a good list again of 10 or so, I probably will do another video on it for some content at some point. And obviously let me know what you think of these, excuse me, in the comments below are my rankings and where you'd rank them to, because I do value your opinion. I want to know what you think. And a lot of you, if you're German, if you're Greek, if you're Spanish, if you're a Chelsea fan, a Leicester fan, a City fan, will undoubtedly know more about these subjects than me. So let me know your opinions if you know more on this subject. Now, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Drop a like if you did. Drop a subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. We're going to have more content on the way and stepping up the levels on this YouTube game with our slow transition over to TikTok. And you've been watching a Dill's Footy Ramble YouTube production, and I'll see you in the next one.